In this week's episode, I'm joined by Jackie Ferguson, co founder and VP of Content and Marketing at the Diversity Movement. She and I will talk about Lyft's Women Plus Connect program, Pinterest's new body positive artificial intelligence algorithms, and more. Hey there, my name is Bernadette Smith. Welcome to 5 Things in 15 Minutes, my weekly show where I bring good vibes to DEI. That is good vibes to diversity, equity, and inclusion with a little dash of corporate social responsibility. What I've found is that there are lots of news stories about what's going wrong in the world and lots of negative data. But there are also a lot of things going right. That's what I like to focus on. I search for DEI stories that we can be inspired by and learn from. My hope is to inspire you to experiment with some of these inclusive actions and policies within your own organization to help you build a more inclusive world. Let's get started, Jackie. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Bernadette. Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie Ferguson. I am the co-founder and VP of Content and Programming at the Diversity Movement. I also have a podcast called Diversity Beyond the Checkbox, and Bernadette was one of my very first guests. I'll never forget that. And then I've recently been awarded the Inc. 200 Female Founders Award, which I was super excited about, which honors female founders in the US that are trying to change the world a little bit. And so that's a little about me.
Congratulations. I somehow
Thanks,
missed that
Bernadette.
in social media. That's really amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You're a little girl from the Hudson Valley, just like
That's
me.
right. That's right.
That's one of
right,
the things
Bernadette.
that Jackie and I have in common, folks, is that we are from the same small region in
Yes,
New York, about 10, 15 minutes drive from each other. So
that's exactly right.
so
Small world.
it is. It is. So go look for the episode that I was on your show a few years ago. All right. So Jackie, you are a DEI practitioner. The topic of today's 5 things is stay relevant. So, in your conversations with your clients, what advice are you giving them to stay relevant?
Yeah, we've heard a lot, Bernadette, about, what's the business case for DEI? And really what we're seeing in that shift is how do we relate that to cultural strength? So as we think about our employee base, we want to make sure that we're retaining them. So staying relevant for us is really about understanding how to build that core competency of a strong culture to then build your productivity against, your retention against, your innovation against, right? Because a good culture and a strong culture creates happy employees, and happy employees work differently. They work hard, they're thinking about new ideas. And so that's one of the things that is important for us to discuss. Another thing that we're finding in business in general is leadership development as a competency. And so we're weaving DEI into leadership development because when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion and the competencies that create good leaders, right? You're thinking about empathy, you're thinking about compassion, you're thinking about commitment. And in addition to the job that you do every day, and how are you building leaders equitably within your organization? And so DEI is, of course, as we know, woven throughout the organization, but definitely we're looking at talking points specific to the culture building and the leadership development, and how to weave DEI throughout those two pieces.
That makes a lot of sense. So are you encouraging your clients or even in your own marketing, are you changing your language to move away from DEI and more towards culture and leadership?
Yeah, we're finding that that does work for certain organizations, right? So there are certain industries specifically that are, a little more open, a little more liberal, a little more understanding of the benefits of DEI. And then there are industries that are a little more closed, a little more conservative in the way that they're thinking about what culture means, right? And so sometimes we have to change that language to combat, right, the idea of, oh, we're doing fine. Our employees are doing great, really. But have you asked them, right? And until you get to that point, sometimes you've got to come in through a different door.
Yeah.
And culture building is certainly one, retention is one, leadership development is one, that we use a lot. And then once you're in there, what those, because what I find, Bernadette, is that very often people weaponize words, right? And so you find that you're against this specific word. But if you call it something else, people are like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Sure.
And okay. And so because people are not open to words the way that they should be, right? Like, let me understand that word. What am I not getting about that? What haven't I heard about that? So sometimes you've got to change the words to get in, and it's the same work, but sometimes the words do matter.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and it's hard to figure out how to weaponize the word culture, so that seems like
Mhm.
a good covert way to
That's
change
right.
hearts and minds. We do it any way we can, right?
That's right. That's right, Bernadette.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get into this week's good vibes. The
Yes.
first story is about how some airports here in the US are increasingly striving to become dementia friendly. This
Yes.
means that they're modifying their facilities and services to better serve travelers with cognitive impairments. So, this could be quiet rooms, sensory training centers to train these folks to experience the airport, all the sensors of it,
Mhm.
and programs like the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Lanyard, which indicates that a traveler may require additional assistance.
Yeah.
I like this because it just shows all of the diversity within diversity, right?
Mhm. That's right. Absolutely. And I think this is great because airports are overwhelming for all of us,
Yeah.
right? And especially when you incorporate the anxiety that many of us feel about flying. Um, are we going to be on time? We've got to go through TSA. And am I going in the right direction? Am I in the right terminal? So for all of us, airports are overwhelming. But when you've got some cognitive disabilities, or dementia or things like that, it's even more so. And so having friendly faces that you can ask questions with the cool lanyards and things, having quiet rooms, right? Getting out of the fray of people running this way and that way, I think is really great. And Bernadette, you said it. Like, this is an example of diversity being extended to everyone, right? There's so many times that when people think of diversity, they're thinking about specific people like gender or race or sometimes sexual orientation, but there are so many aspects of diversity. And this is one that includes everyone. And it's so important to call those things out.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's hard to argue with this. Most people know someone who at least is personally affected by dementia.
That's right.
And so it's really hard to argue with this. I think it's great, and that's kind of another covert way to
Right.
to be inclusive. And because being inclusive also means thinking about our facilities, thinking
Mhm.
about the customer experience and the traveler experience, and how we are creating a space where everyone can feel safe, stay safe,
Mhm.
and yeah, then airports are intense.
Absolutely. And Bernadette, it's just better for business
Yep.
because if you have, dementia, or if someone in your family has dementia, aren't you going to want to go to the airport that's going to service your needs better? And
Mhm.
that's true of all of the things that we think of with who we are as individuals, what our habits and behaviors are, what our needs are. We're going to shop the businesses that give us what we need, that see us, right? That make us feel valued and that can provide the equity that we need. Whatever, words you're using, it's really about, are you providing for us as individuals, and for businesses that are thinking about that and thinking about accessibility throughout their whole experiences. I imagine those airports are going to do a lot better.
Yeah, it's true.
Mhm.
It would be interesting if someone who's a clever reader or listener or watcher would track the different companies I've talked about in five things and see if they beat the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because honestly, I've had a number of guests who are like, and now I want to do more business with them,
Mhm.
right? Because of X, Y, and Z. And so, absolutely, these things really do matter. Okay, the second story is from Operation Hope, which collaborated with Shopify in 2020 to create 1 million Black owned businesses. So
Mhm.
Shopify gave Operation Hope $130 million.
Wow.
And the program offers free business licenses, domain names, payment and delivery support systems, business consultings, and financial literacy to Black entrepreneurs.
Love it.
And it's already created 330,000 Black owned businesses in 3 years.
Wow.
It's
Wow,
pretty
wow.
awesome, right? Above,
Very cool.
quicker than they expected.
That's so great. I think that a lot of Black professionals want to try their hand at entrepreneurship. And I think one of there are several setbacks. One is bias, right, in lending, bias in capital. So, and then another thing is just networking. So many individuals don't have someone in their network that's an entrepreneur that they can sit with and say, okay, how do I go about thinking about this? What do I need to get started? How much capital do I need to get started? Right. And so to have that support system that can really guide you through that process empowers so many more people to say, yes, that this is something that I feel confident in pursuing. And then we do have to talk about the disadvantages that we have in lending, right? And so when we're thinking about capital, and Bernadette, I read this study, it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, but I can't imagine it has changed significantly so. But Black women entrepreneurs were getting about 6 cents for every $1,000 of capital investment in, new businesses, and that's just not enough. And so organizations like this that are making those commitments are seeing a real turn in individuals that have amazing ideas, have amazing capabilities, and just need that support and that encouragement to empower them to move forward.
Absolutely. Did you say 6 cents on the $1,000?
$1,000. Mhm.
That is
Yeah.
beyond pathetic, and
Yeah.
I hope that it's at least become $6, which would be still pathetic, but wow.
Yeah.
So these stories really do make a difference, and what I
Absolutely.
love is that the CEO of Operation Hope is really committed to the financial literacy piece of this project because he sees financial literacy as the civil rights issue of our time, which I
Mhm.
think is fascinating. But it's true in the sense that we need to have a lot of people who start businesses, they don't know how to run a business and they don't
Yeah,
necessarily know how to manage money, but they have a great skill or craft or whatever it happens to be, service.
that's right.
So the financial literacy piece is huge.
Absolutely, Bernadette. And because you can start a business, you can be successful in a business, but how do you sustain that business, right? How do you think about taking that profit and making investments? How much of that profit do you need to put away for, a problem, right? And
Mhm.
and thinking about, how much do you invest in new employees? And so, again, that goes to I don't have the experience with that, right? A lot of experiences that we have with money is like, okay, you make money, you pay your bills, you put your savings aside, try not to run up your credit cards, but it doesn't go beyond that. How do we invest our money? What are some of how much should we put into real estate versus, all the different types of investments that are out there that if you go through them, most of us only know, 10 to 25% of what all the potential investments could be. And so how do you create that opportunity to learn and create financial literacy for people that are now seeing money flowing in, right, from their new business? So important.
Well, when corporates not paying equitably, we have to do our own thing. right? And we have to figure out how to make it worthwhile. So this is so key to close that racial wealth gap in particular. Okay, the third story this week comes from the rideshare company Lyft, which has a new program called Women Plus Connect that matches women and non binary drivers with more women and non binary riders. So folks can turn this setting on, and then the app will start to prioritize matches with others who share their gender identity. So this is in part to try to attract more women and non-binary Lyft drivers, which of course makes Lyft more money, those drivers more money, and hopefully creates a better user experience for the women and non-binary passengers. So win-win-win
Yeah.
is the goal here.
I love that. And, one of the things, Bernadette, that I've heard people say, whether they are drivers or passengers, is they feel nervous.
Yeah.
We're all raised to say, don't get in the car with strangers. And now we're expected to get in the car with strangers, right? And, it can be nerve-wracking. I think for a lot of people that I've had this conversation with over the past day or two, they feel a sense of safety, right? You've got someone that is, a woman driving a woman or a non-binary person driving a woman. It makes them feel a little bit safer. And certainly, to say it out loud, people of all different genders can be positive and all different genders can be negative, but there is that safety measure where people feel more comfortable with that, and I totally get that. I think that's great. And then, it's a great way to make extra money, right? And when you're thinking about the wealth gap between men and women, right? And based on, the pay equity issue that we still have, that's a way to make up some of the difference as individuals. And of course, we have a corporate responsibility to take care of that and make that up. But as individuals, what can we do? I think that's a great way to, change the game for you personally.
Exactly. And it definitely means that I'm going to be calling Lyft on the way to the airport tomorrow instead of Uber.
Yeah,
So there we go.
absolutely.
It
Love it.
works. All right. Fourth story is from J.M. Smucker, which, by the way, happens to be buying Hostess, maker of Twinkies.
Mhm.
Smucker's has adopted a unique hybrid work model called Core Weeks, which is designating 22 weeks a year for in office work, but employees can live wherever they want. They just have to cover their own travel on those core weeks. And it's really working for Smuckers. I mean, folks are really happy with the setup. They're able to save significant amount of money and have that flexibility. And especially for women and underrepresented folks, flexibility is key, in
Yes,
part to avoid the microaggressions that show up in the office.
absolutely. I love this. I think that before COVID, Bernadette, we were all very dedicated to, people need to be in the office and you can't learn and grow if you're not in the office. And how do I know if you're working if you're not in the office? And then COVID, right? And then here we all are working from home. And I think a lot of organizations got to see, okay, people can be productive working from home. And of course, people with disabilities had been advocating for that for years
Sure.
before. And now, okay, we went to a remote. Now we're more of a hybrid workforce, which I think is great. I think flexibility is one of those things that matters to employees in general more than even compensation. I think that, as we think about our lives as individuals and the things that we want to do, our lives as parents or our lives as caregivers for our parents and things, there's lots of different ways that we need flexibility and reasons why we need flexibility in the workforce. I think that's a great program, to be able to depend on your job and have that job, but be able to live anywhere. I think that's great. And especially with some of the legislation, unfortunately, that we're seeing, I think people are looking to relocate, right? And move out of those states that have legislation built against who they are as individuals and humans. And I certainly don't fault people for that.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's a great model. I think that we've started to see different models evolve, and I think this one's Pretty unique. Okay, the fifth story this week comes from Pinterest, which is combating body image biases by using artificial intelligence to promote diverse body types in its image search results. So it's analyzed over 5 billion images and now recognizing different body shapes and sizes to present a more inclusive and diverse portrayal of bodies when they did something similar with skin tones.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that they are trying to use their power for good.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, it's important for individuals to see themselves represented in, the media, when they're thinking about, shopping, is there someone representative of them, right? It's that makes them want to purchase from that brand. I think there's a core values alignment that's required now for people to shop. Different from, 20 years ago where, oh, this is a good brand, shop from there. You're not looking at their values on their website, right? But
Sure.
now I think especially with Gen Z and, in the marketplace, they are very much aligned with shopping with organizations that align with their values. And so I think that diversity and inclusion are major values for the majority of people. And, the thing about, just a quick sidebar, Bernadette, very often the loud people, the minority of loud people, get a lot of attention. But for most of us, DEI is something that we believe in. Human rights is something that we believe in and support. And so just to take that quick sidebar, it's a minority that's really loud and obnoxious and causing us some issues, right? But the majority of us, those who are shopping and those who are in the workplace and living in our communities, believe in human rights and believe that people should be safe and respected. And I think that that's reflective in this, Pinterest thing. I think it's great. I want to shop where I can see someone that looks like me and what it's going to look like on me, right? And not the size 4 that's like, oh, we also have this in your size.
Yes.
But like, what is that going to look like on me, right? And so I love that. And I think that the majority of people of all sizes like to see that represented. They want to see themselves, they want to see their friends, they want to see the people that they're shopping for. And so I think it's great.
I think it's great too. And it's important to have diverse data sets when artificial intelligence is being used, because otherwise artificial intelligence is just going to spit back bias, right? And
Correct.
so having the diversity in this data is really key to promote that representation and to help folks feel included in the search results. So, all right. So thank you. This week's call to action is inclusion tips on the Jewish holidays, which we're in the middle of Rosh Hashanah now. So Shana Tova to those who celebrate. We'll put those inclusion tips there in the show notes as well. Jackie, it has been a wonderful having you as a guest today. How can folks stay in touch with you?
Thanks, Bernadette. I've had so much fun. People can reach me at thediversitymovement.com, or they can find me on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for being an awesome guest, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you for listening to 5 Things in 15 Minutes. I hope you found yourself inspired by at least one of this week's stories. If you did, would you mind sharing it with a colleague and leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform? And if you don't already get my 5 Things newsletter, join at 5thingsdei.com. I'm Bernadette Smith, and I'll see you next week right here for 5 Things in 15 Minutes, bringing good vibes to DEI.